Are you a Sony shooter? Furthermore, are you a Sony shooter that loves to use non-native adapted glass, especially that with an alpha mount? Are you liking your LAEA4 adapter? Not crazy about that third stop of light loss though? Maybe the fact that you've only got 15 focus points in PDAF on this adapter, regardless of the body you put it on? Well, if you are, stay tuned because I've got an exciting and novel solution for not only that lens type, but many more as an autofocus lens. Stay tuned, I'll be right back. This is Jeff Ray, the protographer for Steep and Light Photography. And for the next few minutes, I'm going to go over something with you that I think you're going to find rather interesting. We have an alternative here that I've been working with to the venerable LAEA4 adapter from Sony. And as much as I've loved using this adapter, I am not crazy about the fact that in many low light conditions, I lose that third of stop. And more importantly, I'm really limited in some of the focusing I can do to that central 15 points that it has on the center of its own independent focusing system, separate and apart from that of the PDAF sensors found on modern Sony bodies. So what I'd like to do with you right now is to show you something I've come up with that I'm really excited about. It does the job in a way that's novel, and I think you're going to find it a neat repurposing of an adapter that's been on the market and doing a beautiful job for other lens types as well. Let's get started. All right, those of you who have been following along on my journey here with the TechArt Pro adapter are going to be familiar with this adapter on the right here. For those of you who are not, the TechArt Pro adapter was the very first of the modern adapter era that allows the adaptation of a Sony E-mount body, such as the A7R II I have right here, to be used with, in this case, either a Leica M lens or, by use of an inexpensive intermediate adapter like I have right over here, which I'll show you in just a moment, allow the use of a variety of other lenses from Pentax, Canon, Nikon, and a variety of other manufacturers as well, to be used in an autofocus way on this body. Now, there has recently been a clone of this adapter that's come out on the market. I won't mention their name, but I do want you to be aware that that is a clone and it's unlicensed, and the TechArt Pro adapter is in fact the original in this series. And I highly recommend it because it's, quite frankly, going to be supported going forward into the future, and the manufacturer is a really, really responsible group of folks who have done a really, really incredible job with this. But the bottom line for this adapter is that by its unique ability to move that entire front plane in and out 4 1/2 millimeters, it allows the autofocusing of a lens that does not require any kind of an electronic contact between the front and rear electronics. The reason that's a really big deal is because it lays the foundation, it establishes that foundation to be able to use lenses from other manufacturers without having to worry about the lens itself controlling focus, and in this case, aperture. Now, the adapter on the left over here is the Sony, and as I mentioned in the introduction, I really have enjoyed using both the LAEA3 and EA4 adapters with my modern lenses and with some of the older glass I have, some vintage glass I have, including the very, very popular Minolta lens that came out back in the late 70s and early 80s, which is the 50. In this one case, I think I have the 85 here. No, this is actually this is the 50 I have with me. No, this is the 85. I apologize. This is the 85 millimeter 1.4, and this is a very great lens that I've enjoyed using as well. It's an older series lens, and it actually compares favorably to some of the newer G Master series, although I really love my 85 G Master as well. But assuming for a moment I wanted to use a lens like this on my A7R II body, this of course being an alpha mount lens, I would require this adapter. All right, so why would I be using the LAEA4 adapter as opposed to the LAEA3 adapter with a lens, for instance, of this type? Well, as we can tell, and I'll try to hold this so it's easy for you to see in the viewfinder here, but this lens actually has the ability to be driven with a motor drive by the use of this slot, this recessed slot right here. And that recessed slot is engaged by this pin, which extends out from the adapter body, and I think you can see that there in profile quite nicely. And so this actually has a motor drive in it, which controls the lens. The lens itself receives feedback through its normal pin contacts, the 5 pins back here, which communicate with the pins here on the front, and via some incredibly intelligent hardware inside the case, it sends that signal bidirectionally to the pins on the Sony A7R2 in this case. Now, all good and well, and all that works very, very well. But as I mentioned earlier, it is prone to a couple of limitations. One of those limitations is, of course, that we lose about 1/3 of a stop of light because we have a mirror, which you can actually see reflected quite nicely right here. You can see the reflection of my video light I'm using. And that mirror in there acts like essentially a kind of neutral density filter because it's required in order to send a portion of the light coming through the lens into the sensor system down below to determine the autofocus. That leads to the second problem as well, which is that this actually uses an independent focusing system. It has 15 fixed points on the sensor down below that control focus. Perfect if you're in the center of the frame, not so good if you're off to one side or if you need to use a continuous focus type of situation. It is a decent compromise and it has been with us for some time and it still continues to work well. But what if there were a way to do that where we'd have no mirror, where we would have all of the sensors that are provided in the body doing the work, and the lens itself didn't have to do anything so that we can conserve battery power that would normally be required from the body to drive this adapter. The result would be what I'm about to show you right now, and that is the use of the TechArt Pro adapter with an intermediate adapter that converts from Leica M to, in this case, the Minolta autofocus, or in this case, the Minolta A or Alpha series lenses. Now that's a kind of an exciting thing because number one, this is a very difficult adapter to find or has been in the past, and new manufacturers in addition to Kipon are beginning to come online with this. I've been in contact with a couple of them who have indicated that as a result of what I've discovered here, they are interested in getting into the market to produce one at an even lower cost than this particular adapter. This adapter runs a little over $100, which quite frankly is a little bit high, but it does include one important feature, which is the ability to control the aperture of that lens manually by turning this knob right here around its ring. And that's incredibly important because using that adapter in combination with the TechArt Pro allows us to do something very powerful. It allows us to use the same Alpha series lenses, or for that matter, any other lens that will mount on an intermediate adapter in an autofocus fashion. Now, why is that, and why is this of any interest here? I'm glad I asked me that. The reason being that this adapter, in its normally unmodified state, cannot accept an Alpha style adapter because of the overall physical size of the outer ring. These adapters are too large to fit on an unmodified TechArt Pro adapter. My solution has been, and you can see it here since I've removed the protective tape, has been to widen this, to essentially cut this area out. And I've shown this in a previous video where I've made that modification, and I'm going to refer back to that here so you can see how that was done. But basically, I've made this larger here, enlarged this section in the back here by very, very careful grinding away of that material, and done the same on the upper section above, the two ring support mounts here, to keep this very rigid, but to allow the use of that intermediate adapter series. Now, why is that a really great deal? Because what it allows us to do by placing this on here onto the TechArt Pro, and by placing the TechArt Pro on the Sony body, I now have a new way to mount my Alpha lens. Now, why is that so powerful? Because it allows us to use the adapter to focus the lens. It allows me to use the intermediate ring to control the f-stop on the lens itself. And let me demonstrate that for you here as well, within the region that's defined for that lens. So you can actually set the stops on the lens, or you can set it on the camera body itself. Let me go ahead and turn that on so you can see that as well. And let's see if I can actually show that to you now to show you the differences there. And you can now see that I'm able to open it all the way up and stop it all the way back down. Now, the advantage to obviously having a faster lens is that we don't have to worry too much about stopping it all the way down. In fact, we want to leave it all the way open. So the advantage to this is it allows me to leave it at full aperture, and it allows me to have that beautiful autofocus. And that to me is exciting because I gain several advantages by doing this. Number one, I gain back that light. And with a fast lens, obviously light is everything. So that if you're losing 1/3 of a stop, you're now getting some of the benefit of going to that faster glass. Second of all, I gain the ability to use all of the native focusing that the TechArt Pro adapter supports. So I have continuous autofocus, I have single autofocus mode, I can use it in modified DMF mode, which allows us to have a focus assist and still use automatic focus on that. And According to TechArt's own pros, this does very, very well with eye autofocus. And that's something else that the original LAEA4 adapter did struggle with from time to time. Now, there have been some mixed opinions on how well it does that eye autofocus. And so we'll look into that a little bit later. In fact, I'll probably do a video on that as well. But I wanted to show you guys this right now because this is really exciting. It's something I just was able to get to because I was just able to locate these adapters. I am going to try to have more of these manufactured. I'm pushing right now for that very hard so that this becomes an alternative to the adapter we have from Sony. Now, one other thing I'll mention, because it always comes up as a question, is, all right, fine, we can do that, but how much are we looking at in cost? Well, just tonight I got up online to look to see. The TechArt Pro adapters right now are selling for around $260 to $300. The official list price on it is $399, but you can find them for considerably less. In this particular case, it's about a $100 adapter here. So on average, around $350 to $375 for this combination. The LAEA4 adapter right now is currently selling for about that same price. So you are not going to be looking at a significantly greater expense to go this route. And there is one other significant advantage, and that is that we're not just limited to using alpha lenses. We can use Pentax lenses. We can use the Leica lens series as well. And let me demonstrate that right now for you as well. All right. While the Sony a7R II body will allow me to use with the LAEA4 adapter, will allow me to use, obviously, the alpha lens you've seen mounted here, and that works beautifully as well, although at loss of a third of a stop of light and also that somewhat limited focusing capacity. Let's show where this adapter really rises and shines. And that is by simply removing this. I can natively use my Voigtlander lens. I have my Voigtlander Nocton, which I really, really like. This is actually a 35mm f1.2 lens. And as you'll see right now, I can swap out that other lens and immediately swap this lens in for it. Immediately being the operative word there. There we go. And you will notice it once again by cranking that back up. I'm now able to use the 35mm equivalent on this body as well. The other thing that's nice about this is because there is no electrical contact between the TechArt Pro adapter's front ring and that of the lens itself. We can use a manual lens, as you see right here. This lens, of course, also has the capacity to be used on rangefinder cameras and on others from Leica, but in this case, it's a completely manual lens. So at one time I was using, of course, the lens you just saw here, which is, of course, the alpha, which is automatic, but in this case, it really does convert it to a manual lens that's autofocused by the adapter alone. As an example, I also have my Zhongyi Dream Master. Well, they also call this the Speedmaster lens, and they call this the Dream sometimes. And as you can see, it's an 85mm f1.2. I do love my 85s, and it's a Pentax mount. So what I have here is a Pentax to M mount adapter, and let's very nicely place that on there as well. And there we go. And now you can see I'm controlling yet another 85mm lens. Don't try this with your LAEA4 adapter at home, kids. It won't work. So the bottom line for me is that I'm able to essentially use a whole variety of lenses from Leica, from Voigtlander, from Pentax, in the same exact fashion as I would use the Minolta alpha lens on this body, on my A6300, on my A6500, on the A9, which has been introduced not too long ago, and of course on the A7R III, which is shortly going to be available here in just a few weeks. So the bottom line is this series of adapters does an amazing job for prices comparable to the Sony's own adapter. I'm certainly not telling you not to get one of these. They still work very, very well, and to be quite honest with you, if you're in very well lit conditions and you're using an alpha lens that's fully supported, this adapter does focus just a little bit faster, and that's its only advantage over the TechArt Pro. The TechArt Pro does take, a fraction of a second longer. I haven't timed it, but if I had to make a guess, it's about a tenth of a second longer to focus in very bright light under low contrast conditions. But if you're shooting in any other environment, you're going to find this adapter and this adapter are comparable in their response times, and the fact that you can use a wide variety of lenses and you can use these without that stoppage of light and making use of the internal sensors. There's one other big advantage with the TechArt, and that is that by using the actual firmware that's built into it, it can talk to the Sony body and have it provide in-body image stabilization. That's right, IBIS, with the use of a whole variety of non-adapted lenses. That's incredibly powerful. So as for use in cinematography and for use in specialized photography where you want to reduce that shake, that can't be overstated. So there you have it, folks. The reason I'm so excited is because I can now do things with this lens adapter that it was not natively capable of doing, and I love the fact that I can swap these out very quickly, and I have another option to using my Sony adapter. So this is Jeff Ray, the protographer, for Steeped in Light Photography. I want to thank you guys again for watching. Hope you've enjoyed this. If you want to know more about how I went about making that modification, please look at the previous video I released on that. And if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments down below. And as always, remember, it's not what you take, it's what you make. So remember to make it matter and make it yours. Until next time, guys, great shooting, and thanks for watching.